Hey everybody, and welcome to the very first Sainted Bronies review. Yay! It'll probably be the last, I'm not sure why. Anywho, I'm going to tackle the first one with a fanfiction. This is going to be good for all you readers out there. Now, I'm going to start with some basic things about the author, and then I'm going to get into the story, so just hang out for a second. The author is Bronius Maximus. Awesome name. You may have heard of him from some of the recent stories he made, such as Eternal Lament, Twilight's First Time. That was funny. Breaking Barriers, which is actually the sequel of the story I'm talking about, and then he also made the sequel I'm talking about, which is At Home on the Range. One of the very few Rainbow Dash heterosexual shipping stories. What a rare sighting. Such a rarity. Anywho, the story was, if I'm correct on my calculations, posted first. The first chapter was up January 8th, 2012. And its recent update was the 23rd of last month, and that was for the alternate ending storyline, but it's also got a sequel, Breaking Barriers, so the alternate ending is kind of meaningless. Anywho, let's get to the pros and cons, let's get to the plot! Not that kind of plot. Anywho, the story is about Rainbow Dash finally being able to do a Sonic Rainboom on command. Now, since this was back in January, they didn't know that she could already do that. So, just leave that aside. Anywho, when she finally when she finally is able to do it, she ends up breaking all the windows of Sweet Apple Acres. So in order to pay for it, Rainbow Dash is forced to work on the farm, and finally it comes up to the big payoff / shipping part. Applejack tells Rainbow Dash to take Big Macintosh and move cattle to a city called Prairieville. If she does it, she will finally earn enough money to pay back all the damages. At the same time, Applejack is also playing Cupid and trying to send with her friends out on dates with Big Macintosh, hoping he might finally get a girlfriend. So that's where the plot starts. There are several misadventures involving rivers, sandstorms, cold nights, all kinds of things, because Rainbow Dash is not a cattle driver. And honestly, the first time I saw this story, before I even noticed it was a shipping story, I thought it would be kind of something similar to City Slickers, which is one of my all-time favorite movies. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's amazing. And it very much seemed like it in a lot of places. Rainbow Dash being the city folk, Big Mac being the good old Western boy. Anywho, they finally end up losing the cattle at night because they both fall asleep because they decided no one should watch the cattle. Actually, that was Rainbow's idea. So they decide to go to Prairieville so they can catch a ticket home. But they're also going to Prairieville because they believe that since that's the closest town, it's a good possibility that if rustlers took their cattle, that's where they went. When they get there, they find out that the cattle have been found and already sold by Flim and Flam. Here's where it gets even trickier. It turns out they're the sheriffs of the entire town. And after a little dispute at a bar, Big Macintosh ends up in jail. And then so does Rainbow. Finally, it just gets to the point that they just want to leave. They want to get out of there as fast as they can, but Rainbow is hell-bent on revenge. She wants them out because it turns out that they're also stealing money from the city. And then it turns into Wild Wild West. I'm dead serious, it does. Flim and Flam have another contraption that this time can fly, and I'm serious, just the way it just suddenly goes from a Western movie to just high-tech robots makes you instantly think of Wild Wild West with Will Smith. Just saying. Anywho, in the end of it, Rainbow Dash and Big Macintosh actually find out that they're in love with each other. And thus begins the sequel of Breaking Barriers. Like I said, this would be very vague because I don't want to ruin anything. Now let's get into the pros and cons so I can wrap up this video. Pros and cons, one of the things that I found very interesting, very strange, was that they talked about alcohol and sex. Quite often, actually. As a matter of fact, one of the parts in the story is that Rainbow Dash has had one-night stands, usually with alcohol involved. And it has been several times that she's done that. And that she also, I'm dead serious, this is what it says. It says that when she wants to find a stallion to actually settle down with, she wants a stallion that can, this is what it says, lay her down and give her what she wants. It's both a pro and a con. The con is that it's alcohol and sex, and we're talking about ponies. However, it also shows off a more mature style of Equestria. It shows off a more mature style of the ponies, which does actually make it more realistic. And that's a pro and a con. It just evens out. It doesn't take, it takes away, but it adds, and it just kind of evens out. Another thing is that there are very saucy themes in it, especially with Rainbow Dash. Oh, Lord. Like I said, it seems like Wild Wild West and City Slickers had some inspiration to this. And the humor is actually very playful. It's pretty enjoyable humor for the most part. Overall, I read the story. It's got 11 chapters. Very kind of brief, very simple, very fun. I liked it. It wasn't the best story I read, but it wasn't the worst by far. I would honestly give this a solid 7.3 out of 10 on a rating scale. I really would recommend that you check out this story. It's very enjoyable, very fun. The styles of it that are adult add to it, take away, but balance it out in a nice, very enjoyable way. So yeah, that has been the first Sandy Bronies review. Sorry this is kind of dragged on to 6 minutes. I'm sorry. Anywho, stay tuned. More videos coming soon. Bye-bye.